Okay.
Good morning. We are live. We are here. Happy Saturday. If you watch any of my stuff, you know Saturdays are for animals. So today we're going to take the day off with Tamara and myself. We decided to do something fun one Saturday every month. Show up with some coffee in our pajamas. Tamara, your outfit looks normal, so I don't know. I'm literally in pajamas and slippers.
No, I don't know if you can see, but here, pajamas.
Okay.
I'm matching. See?
We've leveled up. So I hope you are
Yeah.
joining us and as well. We're gonna do some fun stuff today. We've got some intentional topics, and we're just gonna have fun and do what we're gonna do, and just see where this conversation takes us.
I love it. So, and I'll add some layers to that too. Kristen, first of all, good morning. This is only my second cup of coffee, so I'm excited to wake up with you.
First
So
cup.
we were having this whole conversation offline after our session, after you were on my podcast last week, or was that last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever that was. And then the conversation was so good and so just unfiltered. We were like about life and what we're dealing with, that we thought, why don't we just do that on Saturday mornings once a month and just see where it goes? So this is kind of an experiment for both of us.
Yes. And we're live. If you are tuning in I'm on YouTube and Facebook. And I think Tamara, what do you want?
I think I'm on YouTube and Facebook, and maybe LinkedIn snuck in there, and I don't know how. We'll find out.
Okay. We'll figure it out. It's amazing that it's this easy. If you're a podcast host by chance or a host of something, the StreamYard setup it's pretty awesome that you can have multiple people on and they can stream to their own channels. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I set up the event on my StreamYard, but then you set it up ahead of time. So it wasn't like we had to come on and do it. Like, we were already prepared, right?
Right. Yeah. So you can the host gets up to 4 different outlets. So like LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and then the guest, me, gets 2. But yeah, you can preload if you use StreamYard normally, which I do. You can preload what channels you can go live to. So it's great technology. It's amazing what we can do now. And a lot of this is all like brand new, I think within like the last month.
Yeah, amazing. And so if you're out there and you're with us, put a comment in at some point, because I think we can see most of them in the chat bar. We'll find out once again how it works. But you know, it's so funny, Kristen, because I'm one of those people, and I think you're kind of like this too. I can't figure out how it works without doing it. I can't just go do the research. Like, I need to play with it. So I'm perfectly comfortable, like what we're doing, having it work, not work. We'll see. We'll find out. But I don't know how you figure it out without just doing it.
100%. This is why I went to class in college, because I was like an experiential learner, that and my coach checked. So we had to go. But anyways, I have to be there and see it and go through it. And even when you do research, like there was just some things we did here, like you need an Instagram key. That wasn't in any of the directions or the videos that I watched. So you do have to like do stuff, but like CrossFit, and this might be the perfect segue so we can talk about the open. You got to go do the movements versus just watch it on YouTube. Be like, oh, it looks perfect on there, and you go do it and you watch your own video and you're like, that is not how it looked on YouTube by the pros. So
all right, so let's talk about 24.1. So let me tell you, because this is a great example of when you see other people do it, you think, oh, it's going to look like that for me. And so for those who aren't in the CrossFit world, CrossFit does a big global competition that anybody can compete in, and gyms across the globe, their athletes participate, and their members participate. And, you go from there to, the next level, like ultimately to the games. And I'm not going to the games. 99.99% of us are not, but we're just there because it's really a great test of your ability. It's a great community build, because normally gyms do it kind of together on a Friday night, right? There's all these things. But so the big athletes, the top athletes, do it the night before, right? It's announced the day before. And then you do it the next day. So I'm watching these athletes do this to 24.1, Kristen, and I'm like, 6 minutes. Oh my
God. Yeah. And they make it look effortless, so it doesn't look like it's going to be that painful. But you forget these humans do this as a full-time job. Like, this is what they do.
Yeah. So have you done it?
I did it yesterday, and I have not been trained. I didn't even watch the open reveal, which sometimes I don't. My rule of thumb, just having been at this so long, is I always think it looks worse watching someone else than me doing it myself. Like watching my dad compete all these years, or friends or teammates. I always think, because like when they start to die, and it's one thing when you watch it online, you can't really see the up close like sweat pain. But if you train with certain people, you know their pain cave. So watching like my crew do it, like I hate being early. Like I like to be the first heat, get it done, and go because I always think it looks worse.
I did
but
it
it
at
was
9.
fun.
I couldn't go of the Friday night, so I did it at 9:30 in the morning with about 3 other people at the gym. And so just for anyone who doesn't know, it was a 21:59 descent into hell. And it's one arm dumbbell snatches and not alternating, which is what I think made it difficult, and burpees over the barbell. And burpees always kill me. Always kill me. So but I will tell you this. So here's what I was proud of myself for. I'm going to say that because I think like I didn't finish. I got timed out in the 9s. And I'm sick and I'm 51 and fill in the blank, right? So I was happy. I might do it again just to see if I can get a little further because I can't help myself. But here's what I was happy about, Kristen, because I don't think we talk enough about what we're proud of. I said to my coach Ryan, I said, I'm not sure, should I do a higher weight or a lower weight and get further through it? Should I? And he said, well, what would make you feel happy? Like, what would you be most proud of? I said, well, I'd be most proud if I went a little heavier than I thought I could. Because I didn't do that. So I did 30-pound dumbbell. So I didn't do it RX. I didn't do the 35, but I was really happy that I did that and did it all unbroken. And the burpees, I knew were going to slow me down. I have legs that are the length of a 6'2" man.
It's not for the top in this workout.
Yeah, no. So for me to like get on the ground and come back up is a lot of work. But so I was just really proud of that. I was proud that I did 30 pounds and stuck to it. I was proud that I got through, doing everything unbroken in the snatches. So, I'm no games athlete, but I don't know. I don't think we talk enough about the things we do that we're like, okay, so I didn't maybe finish it the way it was meant to be finished, but I did it well for me.
Yes. I love this. And I have the biggest hot take on this because being a competitive athlete for so long, I think a lot back about my young self wanted these major mile markers that society champions, qualifying, getting the medals, doing all this stuff. And then now as a 43-year-old, I look back, I'm like, what did I really learn? And when I go out to do like these harder things, like we did the marathon thing, the dopey challenge, blah, 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 that's all great. But the real takeaway, like when I really feel what I've learned of all these years of competing is just like what you said, is when I have to walk into a room and give a speech that I wrote 6 days ago, which this scenario is about to happen on Wednesday. And, you're doing something new, whatever, I haven't done it. I don't think it's that big of a deal because I'm so conditioned as a competitor to show up no matter what's called. I'm not going to change, I'm not going to not do the workout because of what's called, or I'm not going to not give the speech because the lighting's off. Like no matter what, I'm so trained to show and go that anything that happens now in my life, I'm so appreciative of that skill, show up and execute. And when I heard some athletes yesterday being like, well, I might sign up, but it depends on the first workout or it depends this. I'm like, oh, that's the worst life practice because you can't finish the first workout or whatever. We've all been there. That is not the practice for the long-term takeaway. CrossFit's about longevity in life, training you to do hard things, being able to walk with your kids up the stairs or just show up and do something you don't know that you can do. And when you do this practice of I might do it or I might, depending on what it is, that is not life. You are not setting yourself up for success in life and thinking you have this option to choose. You don't have, like, if you have to all of a sudden take care of your parents or whatever, you can't be like, oh, well, I might do it tomorrow. I'm going to check the schedule. It's like, you have to be ready to show and go. So we were talking about this yesterday and I have a very hot take because I just think when you allow yourself that out on these things versus choosing to do something harder and just see what happens, you're just not setting yourself up for life. So there we go. There's my hot Saturday take.
No, I'm gonna, you get it, Kristen. I'm gonna build on that because I 100% agree with you. And I kind of feel that way when I hear people, even at the gym, say, well, I'm going to check the workout and decide if I'm going to go tomorrow. So I don't look. I never look at the workout. It's posted the night before. I never look, not because I'm lazy, not because I don't care, but because I know the point is to show up. Yes. So it doesn't actually matter if it's going to be a workout that I absolutely hate or that is totally tailored to my strengths. Yes. So oftentimes I get there and I'm like, oh God, the echo bike, the devil bike, and burpees, like really the two worst things for me, but it doesn't matter because I'm there. And I know that if I look the night before, that voice starts to pick up in me. And I think it's a mistake. I think it's a mistake to check the night before. I get it if you're working on something or you've got some skills you're trying to get, but I think it's people protecting themselves from failure. And I think showing up, particularly in this case, is success. So I don't think so I showed up for the open. I know I'm not going to the games. I'm pretty clear
Right.
about that at this stage of my life. So that's not my goal anyway, but my goal was to be there and to do my best and to almost puke. And I did.
Well, there you go. I hope you refueled and hydrated. But it's so real. And if people understand that it's so much bigger than the fitness and what it's doing, and to get uncomfortable as we get older is so critical because life's gonna get hard. You know, our parents are gonna get older, our kids are gonna get older, our dogs are whatever it is, like hard stuff's gonna come. It is such a privilege to have that experience prior to that moment, to know how to show up and be in that moment, be like, oh, you know what? I got this. I've done hard things. I've been uncomfortable. There's
Yeah.
been so many times where I've had an audience of thousands of people and I've stood there because I
Mhm.
couldn't do the movement. I couldn't finish the muscle up. I couldn't. And to sit, I mean, and your heart sinks. And so now when I walk into a hard space, I'm like, oh shit. I don't have to run a 5-minute mile or do a muscle up. All I have to do is execute a speech in front of 1,000 people. That is no problem. Like it makes everything else so much easier. So I really encourage people to shift their perspective, let go of like the time or whatever, do the
Yeah.
hard thing and do what makes you happy, but prepare yourself for something bigger.
Here's the other thing I've learned too. I go back to the speech because I do a lot of keynoting too, keynote speeches. Is there have been moments where I've gotten on stage in front of sometimes it's 50 people, sometimes it's 2,000. Actually, I find the 50 harder. I
Yeah.
find the 2,000 really easy because it's just a sea of people. But the 50 almost like it's a little more intimate in a weird way, you know?
Yeah.
But I've gone up there and forgotten what I was going to say, forgotten the next thing I wanted to talk about. And here's what I realized: nobody knows. They
Right.
don't know what you meant to say, and they don't know that you did or didn't forget a line. So it doesn't really matter. Just keep going
Yeah.
and you'll figure it out. And I find that that action of keeping going brings your confidence back. So even if you're panicked, even if you're, I don't know, I just feel like, hey, if you just keep going, it,
Exactly.
you
Just like
tend to figure it out, and nobody else knows that you didn't mean to do that, or
yeah.
that that was for you was a mistake or a moment of freezing. They don't know.
Exactly. And that works in the reverse where like in your biggest moments in life, this is what I'm going to give on my speech on this coming Wednesday, is about gold stars because we seek these mile markers. But if you think about the moments, you went to the
Yeah.
games, give a big speech, blah, 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 but like your really proud moments that nobody knows of, having a baby or showing up for someone, like all the
Mhm.
moments that only you know, I think it's such an important practice. Like you were saying, to give yourself that gold star, give yourself that pride, because all these things that get accolades are great. But like our really, really proud moments in life, usually nobody knows. And the only ones that can celebrate are us. Like you really got to have that practice of being like, yeah, you know what? I failed out of work and I didn't get this muscle up, like what we talked about on our podcast. But that was one of my finest moments that ended up
Yeah.
getting me taken off a team, blah, blah, blah. So you really got to know when you're doing big things for you and build that practice, because I think the accolades are great, but usually our biggest moments aren't going to be cheered on by others. Like you just have to know.
Okay, so with that, can I tell you about what I did this week? Because it was exactly that, of something that I was doing for me to go bigger for me,
Okay.
and nobody else knew I was really doing it.
Yes.
So I think I told Jackie, who I know was watching. So I think because she and I had a conversation, but it wasn't a public thing. I wasn't like out there. So I tend to, when I tend to go after a challenge, I tend to not tell people. And there's all, so this is a little bit of a sidetrack, but there's all this research on when you tell too many people, you get your dopamine hit from the support and not from the effort.
Okay.
So, right. So they find actually what research is showing is that we actually shouldn't share our goals with everybody all the time and like post it everywhere. So if I'm quiet on social, you know I'm up to something. That's how like that's my little tell. So is that funny? Isn't that
I
crazy?
love that. I'm like, I'm never quiet on social, but I feel like I'm never fully talking about what I'm doing. So I don't know. I'm always like somewhere in the middle of I'm the outlier on most studies.
So who's the guy that wrote Atomic Habits? Is it James Clear? Is that his name?
God, I
I
haven't read
always
that in forever.
Oh, guys, such a good book, right? So I
Yeah.
think it's this book and maybe something I read of his online. I can't even remember, but the point is, they've actually research has shown that, you know, when you've got a big support group, which is awesome in some ways. So I'm not knocking having champions,
Yeah.
but we get our dopamine, our feel good hit from the support, not from the work. And that's where it becomes a challenge. So all that is to say, okay, so since we're having Saturday morning coffee, and this is the real deal. So this week, so let me back up. I have been really struggling with being exhausted.
Yeah. I hear
And yeah, and
that.
so yeah, coffee. So, and I was really hooked on energy drinks. I was having one a day, which is I think a lot. Some people do a lot more than that, but for me that
Yeah.
was a lot. But what I was finding is, so I get up at 4 a.m., right? I go to 5 a.m. CrossFit or whatever it is, And then I come home and I have more coffee and I'm tired, but I get to work, but I'm tired. And so then I have an energy drink and I get to work. Excuse me. And then after my energy drink, I'm good through my energy drink, I crash.
Yep.
And so I was needing a nap almost every day. And I'd convinced myself that, well, I'm 51. I'm a woman. My hormones are changing. I work out hard. I own a business. I do a podcast, right? It's like, I just convinced myself that like, I'm just going to be tired from here on out. And then I woke up one day and thought, maybe I'm tired because I'm setting myself up to be tired. And maybe I'm so exhausted because I believe I'm exhausted. Like maybe this is a little bit of a mental and physical game that I'm sabotaging myself.
Yeah.
So I did an experiment this week. And this is the first time I'm talking about it. So this week, I did not go to 5 a.m. I went to 9:30 a.m. I slept till 6:30, which for me is like sleeping in, right? I went to 9:30-ish CrossFit and even a 5:30 p.m., which is so funny. I walked in the door. People are like, what are you doing here? They're all like, how are you awake? So I slept. I didn't have any energy drinks. I still had my coffee. Don't get me wrong. I'm not giving up my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah.
And I went to not only, but I balanced CrossFit with, are you ready for this? Zumba.
Oh, yes. Oh, music for the soul. I'm so here for dance anything, but carry on.
Right. Me too. I love to dance. And I've got a bunch of dance apps that I do all the time. I went to Zumba. I went to bar. I went to Bikram yoga, which I already knew I loved. So I did all these things. And I have to tell you, I feel great.
Yeah.
I felt better this week than I have felt in a long time. I did not need a nap. I performed relatively, I thought, well in all my exercises. And the bar class I went to wasn't like I gently sweat, so I walked away like, did I work out? Did I not? Because I'm so used to you have to go crazy. But my body feels better. My joints feel better. I feel more energy. And I didn't tell anyone I was doing this. I wanted to see. And it was really incredible the difference it made. And you and I talked a little bit about this offline. Like it's a little bit weird because if you know me, part of my identity is like Tamara's a 5 a.m.er, right? That is her, like it's an identity thing. And it was hard for me to let go of that this week, but the results were so good.
Yeah. Well, you could still be a 5 a.m.er 3 days a week and not 5. Like you could still be and do the bar, but good for you for switching up. It's really hard to switch a routine, especially as we get older. So to try something new.
Yeah.
And I think the sleep and maybe just sleeping a little longer, like just the natural circadian rhythm, when the sun comes up, you get up and then you go to bed when the sun goes down, all the little things. I mean, if Jackie's listening, I was going to say, if you're still tired, go talk to a nutritionist because it might be, hormonal, but I'm with you. I have that tired thing too. And the more research I read, 5 to 6 days a week of high intensity training it's really a lot on your body and your brain and the recovery. So that's great. I'm glad you had great results. That's huge.
Well, it was one of those things where I was like, I'm just going to quietly try this. And my ego fought it the whole time because I wanted to be up at 4 and be like, look at me. Look at my morning routine of success. Like I get up and I cold plunge and I CrossFit and I journal before everybody starts their day. But, it sounds so good to say, but the truth is it doesn't actually work for me. And I heard this guy that I admire say, I get up when I'm done sleeping. And I was like, holy shit, what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was going to say, why do you feel the pressure to do that situation? Like, why is that like a gold star to you? I think to society it is.
Yeah. I think a couple. So I can think a couple things. It's going to come out a little jumbled because I don't know that I've ever articulated it. One is I think when you look at social media, it's like, you get up at 4 a.m., you do your workout, you journal, you cold plunge, you hot sauna, this is what all the like Uber entrepreneur disruptors do, which is kind of the world that I'm in. So I think there is this false expectation of this is what you should do in the morning if you want to achieve in life. So I think it's false. I've learned it's false. And I kind of knew that in the back of my head, but I had to experience it like we were talking about earlier. So that's one. I think there's this expectation out in the world that that's what you're supposed to do. And it doesn't work for everybody. And the second thing is when I got my life together, when I lost 30 pounds, got super fit, got my business off the ground, divorced the person I wasn't supposed to be married to, that all came with CrossFit and 5 a.m. Like that's what propelled me forward. So for me, I think there's a part of me that doesn't want to let go of that because That's what helped me get where I am. Does that make sense? Is that weird? Ooh, did we freeze? Did I freeze? I think that Kristen may have frozen on us. So tell me in the comments if you're watching what you see so that I. Oh, there you are.
It went out. It came back now.
Okay. I was like, I'm just going to keep talking.
Just keep going. Universe interrupts. But
Yeah.
So I think we left out on like the 5 a.m. was everything in life, like identified that was kind of like the disruption point in your life. So you really valued it.
Yeah. You know what? That's better said. Have you had stuff like that where it's like what gets you here doesn't get you there, but you're stuck on what got you here?
Oh my God. Yeah. The continuous like narrative I feel like of my life where I'm like, I'm a lacrosse player and then CrossFit slowly transitioned and then I'm an entrepreneur. And then at one point I took a full-time job, which was not my identity and I'd never embraced because it's never going to fit. And it went back. So, and then now I'm a podcaster. So I'm always like in that, but also the irony of me is I live in the world of, we do marketing branding. We've done influencers before it was a thing because I worked with startups and they didn't have a bunch of budgets. We did key community leaders, blah, blah, blah. But I don't follow a lot of like what you're supposed to do and successful people wake up early and this and that. Like I don't subscribe to that. Number one, I don't consume a lot of that media. I read a few like good, like quote unquote self-help books, but I just knowing now at 43, like I don't really fall into a lot of those boxes and I'm not a morning person. I don't want to get up early and I know my body needs sleep. So if I don't know if Jackie's still watching, but I laugh at the 9:30. I think people always think the 9:30 class is like not the losers, but like the ones that can sleep in, they're kicking it and whatever. But if you go to our 9:30 class, it's everyone that has the luxury to come a little bit later. Entrepreneurs, parents that stay at home, people that have made a bunch of money and have retired. Like they're like some gangsters, but you wouldn't know it. And the 9:30 class doesn't get the label of like the hard workers, this and that. But come to our class, like we'll be messing around and laughing. And then come go time, everyone's going 100%. So I know enough to know that it's not always how it seems.
I agree with you. And I think too that, well, for me, what I found this week is what I love about it is I get up and I get right to work. And we had talked about like purpose and maybe we can talk a little bit more about that too, because I think that was a good conversation that we were starting to have about kind of where we're focused. But I find that for me now I can get up, I get to work, which puts my brain to ease. Like I want to get to work. I need to get to work. I've got somewhere I'm trying to go. So for me to start my day with that thing that's my big purpose right now, I think is really important. And I find that when I was going to the gym first, it was like my mind was like, you need to get to work. You need to get to work. So by 9:30, I've done 2 to 3 hours of work.
Yeah.
And then I get back to work. So there's something about it, but it was hard to let go because it was, to your point, it was what got me to where I am. So I was having a hard time letting go because it really worked for me. It made a difference for me.
That's amazing. So are you going to keep this routine or what's your steps moving forward?
That's my goal. And here's the other thing. I've met some awesome people that I never saw at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I think that is my goal. So, and it's part of it's my goals because Kristen, what we were talking about last time, which I'm going to flip back to you to ask about, which is kind of, we were talking about like what's in our line of sight and what's our purpose and focus. And so where are you headed? What are you like, when you think about where you want to spend your time, where is it?
I mean, honestly, the real answer to that is I have no idea, not because I haven't thought about it. It's because I'm in such a space of letting go and I have so much faith that like the right thing is coming in. And for someone, again, you want to train harder. I'm going to go top 20 D1. I'm going to go to the CrossFit Games. I'm going to train for this marathon. I know how to do all this stuff in life, in love, and like all the things that truly matter. We don't control any of that. I think you got to get your heart space right, your mindset right, be open to things. But truthfully, it's really about letting go and trusting something larger, whether that's faith or universe or Madonna, and just showing up, like getting to your best space and just having faith. And that works against everything I've ever been taught as an entrepreneur and an athlete, like to, do more and get ready and, stay ready, so you don't have to get ready. But I'm just open. I'm 100%. I wrote a 5-page letter. I don't know if you read it, with my friend Jessica. So I'm clear on what I want. Like I want this podcast to be the next thing. I'm very clear that my purpose is connecting with people and helping them see their light. And how that really looks, I have no idea. But 15 years ago, I didn't know podcasting was even going to be a thing, let alone my thing. So I'm open to podcast being success. I'm open to love and having a really successful relationship. Success is subjective there. And just being open to having time and having fun. Like really getting back to myself where I'm not busy all the time. I'm not stressed out about fitness. I'm just in flow and doing the purpose.
Do you think it's hard as a type A person? Because there's a part of me that really agrees with you and a part of me that really struggles
Yeah.
because I'm so type A.
Yeah, but you're so exhausted. I'll get
Yeah,
adrenal and like
fair.
I'm telling you, universe will check the shit out of you when you get sick. I've been sick twice. You get injured, you get tired, you start to do stuff you don't want to do. Even at my 9:30 class, like that's like I try and work my day around that. And it is a hard time because I do wake up and be like, fuck, I got all this stuff to do. And these are some of the most important people in my life. I so value our time and energy and conversations. I work alone primarily, so that is my social time. You know, my dad's there, so I value that time and I work everything around that. Even though in my mind I'm like, dude, you don't have time to talk, like you gotta go. But to me, I ultimately know that conversation, that 5 minutes of how are you, what's going on, that matters more to me than the end game. And truthfully, it's preparing me for the podcast. Like all those conversations, ironically, are exactly what I do on the podcast. So my thing is just letting go. And yeah, it's a constant practice of just working to chill the F out and relax. And I heard a quote like, my life or your life is not an emergency. So you have to just relax. And again, you don't have control. So you might as well just enjoy it.
So one of the things that, well, there's a couple of things that I do when I start to get riled up when I know I need to be letting go. One is I walk the dogs. It's always, and I try not to bring my headphones so that I'm not listening, like taking in stimulus, just be outside with the dogs. That always helps. I do love the cold plunge. So I do cold plunge. And sometimes I'll just walk on the treadmill and watch really bad TV, like Love is Blind. I know it's like my guilty pleasure. I love
Oh,
it
me
so
too.
much.
It's trash. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's such trash. I mean, we can't be productive all the time. It's like ridiculous. So what do you do? What do you do? And what do you do when those moments start to creep up where it's like you can feel it almost like bubbling up.
Yeah. I mean, I this year I've more than ever, I've never been a person that's pressed about time, like especially like getting older here for Botox. I've never sweat my age. I've even as a female with a biological clock that's ticking, I never sweat about being married or having the right career or these timelines. Like if you would have asked me in high school, what do you want? Like what's like your big dream? I truthfully would have said, I just want to be free. I want to be free to like not have to go to class, not have to go to college, not have to do these things that feel like bumper lanes in my life. Like I just want to be free. And my word this year, ironically, was freedom. And that
Yeah.
didn't flick on that conversation around high school until very recently. But I sit down and I really just check in and see how fast time is going. I see my dogs are getting older. I see my dad that's getting older at CrossFit and me getting older, my body changing, blah, blah, blah. And then I go, just pause. Like stuff's happening so fast and I can see it now. Like, what do I actually care about? And I slow down enough to be like, yes, we want to make the millions of dollars and all this, but like I care about right now. Like time's moving, take a pause back, see the changes happening, and just be there and be present.
I heard a great phrase the other day from Deion Sanders, who said, "Be where your feet are." And
Yes.
I thought that was such a great way to articulate be present. And what a great reminder. So I just the other day I was doing it. I was in my home and I was petting my dogs, but my brain was elsewhere. And I was like, Tamara, just be where your feet are. And my feet is petting my dog. Like it's
Yeah.
just that, like
Yeah.
just do that one thing that you have right in front of you. You don't have to do it all the time.
Right. Well, and if you think fast forward when, the 5, 10 million comes and all that, and you don't have right now, you might have all the money, but all the things you really cared about might be doing something else, or you might be somewhere else. Like it's not like everything's going to pause, wait for you to get to that end game. And then you get to have the end game and all the success. And then you go right back to your life. Like there's
Yeah.
always that opportunity cost. You got to just go with the flow of it and know that that's great that it's coming, but man, you got a lot of gold right now.
I love that. And I find that when I let go, more of that gold comes to me. It's
Yeah.
when I'm white knuckling and holding on too tight that the universe is like, this is too much like anxiety energy. Like, we're not giving you what you want. When I just kind of let go, the stuff flows
Yes.
so much more freely and so much more abundantly across everything that I do. The
Yeah.
love, money, relationships, like all of it.
100%. And for people like us, the narrative of if I don't do it or someone else is going to do it for me does not resonate. Like the
No.
fact that it's not even, this is probably a deeper issue, but like something else larger is going to show up and take care of it. Like that's a constant struggle for me of like, are you sure? Like this doesn't have to be hard. Like I don't have to do like all the work and everything. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just still such a bizarre concept to me. And I do believe it. I just have to sit there and let it marinate and know that I believe it.
Well, and I find that no matter how much proof I have that that's true, I still have to relearn over and over again. I'm not quite at the place where I can just live that. I still need to like intentionally let go. I can't just do it naturally yet. So I'm trying, I'm getting there, but it's not quite there yet for sure.
Yeah. Do you, and this might be a personal question, but like, do you find this shows up in your relationships, personal, I would say professional and personal?
So, okay, since it's Saturday morning, we're going to go there.
Okay. Okay.
Here's what I've learned in relationships. What I've learned to let go of is expectations. I can't expect that my man is going to greet me a certain way. I can't expect for him to say I love you in a certain way. I can't, and once I let go of those expectations, what I wanted and more came my way. And it didn't always look the way I thought it was going to look, but it came flowing. And so, yeah. So, yeah, I think in personal relationships, without a doubt, and same with people and same with leading people. I lead people both in my business. I've got clients, and then I've also got Fire, my nonprofit that I'm now president of. And I find that if I just let go and let people do their things a little bit, like be a good leader, but let go of how I think it should be done or what it's going to take or like my micromanaging of it, it goes better than I expected. So I don't know if that answered your question, but do you find that too or no?
I do. I think you said it really well. Yes, and I'm also taking notes on what you said. Personally, yeah, well, God, my business it's all relationships. It's building companies.
Yeah.
Everything's so personal that my actual personal relationships have always been put on the back burner. A lot of it's because I just have more energy to give. By the time fitness is so personal and vulnerable and competing, and then business, and then kind of recently going through like more or less of a breakup. Is I had like this evaluation of like, all right, what do we like really want here? What's like the success, failure points, blah, blah, blah. And it was a lot about letting go of expectation, but also getting clear on what is really important to me. Like showing up is probably my biggest thing. And if that's not happening, nothing else is really going to work. And it's letting them show up that way of like, him doing it his way versus me like thinking like, oh, this is what's showing up. And in business, it's probably like you will do the most. Like I'm showing up, I'm doing all the things. I'm working with a brand. I talk about it all the time. My expectation is if I'm doing it, you're doing it, and that's not always the case.
Yeah.
I've had to learn that.
The case.
Right. So I've had to learn that a few times. Of you don't have to give 110%. 100% is enough. So yeah, it's these themes that kind of show up everywhere that we continuously work on.
And also, I think it's a little bit of an ego check because why is my way the best way?
Of course.
Maybe it's not the best way, right? In fact, oftentimes it is not the best way. So I think for me, it was also, as I've gotten older, I've learned that, hey, guess what, Tamara? I'm the shit in a lot of ways, but I'm also not. So, and that's great. And to be able to value and respect the things that other people bring their way, I think it's a gift in life too, because I think you build stronger connections. You see people's value, they feel more appreciated, but look, my way is not the only way. And oftentimes it's not the best way. So just let it go, Tamara. That's how I feel. I think there's a little bit of ego with that too.
I completely agree. And I'd also say that's one of the great things about being part of a team young is you get to see and learn how other people do things with the exact same skill that everyone's being taught, like on the lacrosse field. Someone says this is how you play defense, and it might look different for me than how this defender does it. But it's cool to just get that skill of it's your way's probably not the best way, but what a beautiful opportunity to learn from someone else and get like a life pro tip from someone right there. And everybody's doing it better. Like you don't need to have it again figured out. Just be open to things. I mean, even you switching up your weekly routine because you had this narrative of this is what successful people do. They wake up, they do this. And I think this is a really good message for our young people to hear. Just because you're seeing it might be a good way, but it might not be the best way for you. Try it. And if it's not, that's okay. Like do it your way or do it a different way.
There's a lot of what I've learned over the time is there's a lot of different ways to be ambitious. So I do value ambition in the sense of I think it's great. I think it's important to have something that you're really passionate about that you go after. Now, I don't care if that is you are passionate about being a firefighter, you're passionate about building a business, you're passionate about being a school teacher, you're passionate about being a parent. Like I don't care what it is. I just think that I hope that we all have something that we're super passionate about that we really want to go after in life and that we go at it with gusto, but how we do it is totally up to us. And that's the part that I think we miss. Well, I think there's two parts. I think one is some of us miss, like, what am I passionate about? And that's a journey that we have to go on and figure out where those arrows point, those flags, like you said last time, those flags in the forest, what they are. I think that's number one, is like, what am I really passionate about? And then how do I go after it in a way that's 100% for me?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And I would say with that is don't consume too much social media or people's opinions around you. Like everyone says, listen to everyone. I say this at CrossFit. I'm like, oh, intermittent listening. Like, go ahead and listen, but also like just listen to yourself. Like you don't, to my young people out there, adults do not know the answer. We know some things and we can tell you what works for us, but we're not you. So trust your gut and start that practice early of not always listening and just trusting what you want to do and move forward. Our young people are smart and you just don't always need direction. I think a lot of our directions, even though they're well intended, that you can find the arrows in the forest that are for you, not us. Like we can help you, but you got to just really trust what you're doing and take that own path.
I also think that we are living in really incredible times where we have more opportunity to do it our own way than we've ever had. And that we should all take advantage of that. So, I grew up in the corporate America in the early mid 90s. Into the kind of 2000s. And at that point, like when you were junior in your career, there was a certain path that you went on. And I went to Madison Avenue, right? Creative, big global advertising agency. But I was lucky to go to a meeting as a junior person and take notes. But don't speak, Tamara, because you're not at the director level. Like the path was very defined. Now, because I always poke the bear and I'm a little bit disruptive. And I got lucky. I had some incredible bosses who didn't quite subscribe to the whole, unless you've been here 20 years, you don't have a voice. So I got fortunate with the team I'm on. Or maybe I got put on that team because nobody else wanted to work with me because I was always so vocal. I'm not really sure. But my point is, that was the path that a lot of us had to take because that's what it was. And I feel like now anything goes. And I think that's a wonderful part of all the change and the disruption we've experienced. And it's hard and it's challenging, but it allows for a playing field that anybody can get on. And I really believe that. What do you think?
Absolutely. There's so many less gatekeepers nowadays. I mean, you look at specific industries, finance, music. I mean, before there was like Bertelsmann and Company that owned Arista and this and that. And there was like 6 people, hence Harvey Weinstein and all those guys in Hollywood. There's all these gatekeepers. And if you don't pass this gate, you do not get through. Well, now there's TikTok that are, this already emerging artists. And like, there's all these avenues where all these former gatekeepers are irrelevant. So yeah, these spaces have been wildly disruptive because of social media, the internet, or just the way our young people operate. There's way more opportunities and avenues you can take to get to the exact same end game because those gatekeepers and those channels no longer are the only way. So it's an amazing time to do something that you want to do your way.
Well, and, so in a lot of my career, because it was advertising, branding, new product development, innovation, we spent a lot of money. I mean, millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars on market research to get to customers, to get feedback. Now, if I want feedback, I just post something on TikTok. Like, it's amazing to me. Like, so, and I look on TikTok and I have to say, like, I know there's a real shadow side to social media. I know I get slipped into it too when I look at people with their perfect bodies and they're like, everywhere they are in the world. I'm like, do these people work? What do they do all day? But the flip side to that is I just came across this guy who's this amazing human beatboxer. I don't even know where he lives, somewhere, I think in Eastern Europe. I'm not even sure. Like, his talent is so amazing. I would have never seen him. Some comedians that I would have never known about, some people who have great advice for being successful in life that I would have never known about. So I think if you have an idea of something you want to pursue, there's so many channels to get it out there and to experiment and test and get feedback. The walls aren't there. The gatekeepers aren't there. Like you said, I love that. And the walls aren't there. You are directly connected to millions of people around the world.
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
and you
instantly.
I completely agree. And you can see how different they are. Like, there's some really unique people. And that's like the point. That's what, again, this kind of goes back to the purpose. That's right here. However different, weird, strange, cool, whatever the label is, that's usually the intel on what you're supposed to be doing. And now if people can see that that's really weird, this person's farming in Alaska or, they're bow hunting or whatever, you can be like, oh, there's people like me. Like, there's a community out there that is unique and special as I think I am. There's other ones like you, and you can just follow your heart, not listen as much and just do what you want to do. And here's the proof. Here's what it is.
Yeah. And then have some intermittent filtering or listening to all the other people that you're like, okay, that doesn't make me feel so good. I'm just going to push that aside.
Yeah. It's funny because growing up, I mean, obviously I always spoke fast. I remember I called my
too.
coach my freshman year, and we had landlines, of course, because I'm young. And I left a message, and it was something to my coach like, I just landed, I'll be in town, or I've got practice. I don't know. And she called me back, and I was and she goes, Kristen, you need to slow down. I can't understand what you're saying. Da, da, da. And then our meeting, she was like, some of the feedback are like, I feel like you're always talking and you're never listening. And I was like, dang. And I really took these things to heart. Well, the talking fast, this is the slower version. I took it to heart. And then now, 25, 30 years later, I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't listen at times,
Yeah.
because those were the pieces where I just went my own way, naive and blind and, ignorant in some capacity. And I'm glad. I'm so thankful I just stayed tuned into myself and did what I wanted to do. So I don't know. So you got to take in some of the things, but also know when to filter it out, because some of it you just got to do you.
Okay, so here's my question about that, because I'd love to swap notes with you on this. What are the things people told you to like dial back, dial down, change that you kind of maybe you listened or didn't, but you now know is like, well, that's actually a part of me.
Oh God. I would say the inline is that you're just too much in general. And it wasn't that language, but it was like, you talk too fast, you're too loud, or your volume is so loud. In relationships I've gotten like, God, and on the field, you're so intense. Like, da-da-da. And these are all the things that like I champion now. Like, am I intense? Fuck yeah, I'm intense. But like, if we're going to go through, like, I will show up on the competitive field. I'll show up to give a speech. Like, you're going to get 110%. And that's never, or I would say that's not always everyone's cup of tea, but for my ones that it is, like, we're in it. Like, I can recognize my tribe right away. So and that's okay. But like all those things that like really got called out early on, and again, 90s, 2000s, I never fit into like the mold that I would want, they wanted me to fit in. But those are now what I would think my competitive edges. How about you?
Well, I'm just gonna really quickly, Jackie put in there bossy. Yeah, I got bossy. Oh, so here, yes, I got bossy too, Jackie. So here, what are mine? Mine were too loud.
Yeah.
Too energetic, like dial it down. Too many ideas.
Oh
Definitely talking too fast. I've gotten talking. I'm Israeli and I lived in New York. Like I cannot help but talk fast and talk with my hands, it's who I am. And again, this too is me dialed. Like this is me trying to not talk too fast. Yeah, I mean, it was always like just too much, to this. It was always a TOO, like I'm TOO, fill in the blank. The one that I was telling you about last time is too much confidence. Like I should be more humble.
That is horrifying to me.
I know, right?
Yes, I hate it.
You know what I find funny about that is I have confidence for sure, like you do, right? Like a lot of the people that we know.
Yeah.
But I have so much confidence that I'm willing to say I don't know what I'm talking about, and want. And I think that's why I do a podcast, right? Because I want to learn from other people. So I think confidence makes other people feel mediocre and insecure. And I think what actually is happening when someone tells you you have too much confidence is actually what they're saying is, I wish I had more. And so when someone says that stuff to me, I tend to meet them with some compassion, because I think that's what's really happening. But yeah, those are my TOO, fill in the blank.
Yeah. And I think it's great for people to talk about. And it's so funny because it's like too energetic or too this. And on the flip side, it's people that don't have enough energy, so they're medicated, or they don't have any ideas, so they're putting into some things, or they're not loud enough. You got to speak up. Like you're never really what other people want you to be in general. So I think that's the early conversation of just letting that go. But more importantly, when you're trying to do something other than yourself, that's the mental health conversation. That's when you're not able to do you, that's when the friction in the mental health, I think, really happens, especially with our young people, where you have this subscribed reality that isn't real. Like that whole statement's an oxymoron of you just got to do you. And the good side of podcasting and like this is you can see, yeah, I'm confident in this space, mostly because I've had so many failures publicly with an audience and whatever, or, it rips my heart out athletically, or I give a speech and it's awful or whatever. You get to see those vulnerable moments, but not really. But so if we have this platform, we can say, yes, I'm confident. And I absolutely still have my insecurities, my weaknesses, points I have to like grow on. And it's not just, it's turmeric, it's both sides. It's not just this one thing you see all the time. It's everything.
I just think that we should be better at, and I don't tend to play the gender roles, but I say in this case, women fall into this more than men for sure, is, well, like when someone gives you a compliment, right? If they say, great job building your podcast, like my response at least has always been like, oh my gosh, thank you. It takes a team, it takes a village.
Yeah.
I just show up, my team does, so you take away the work that you put into it. And I think that's a shame. I think we can say thank you and stop there. And I think we can say thank you and recognize all the incredible people that do all the other work too. I don't think they have to live in opposition of each other, but we think they do. And I think as women, sometimes we tend to especially want to be more humble as our kind of forward face. But I don't know, Kristen, tell me what you think. I think we should be proud of the work that we put into it. We should be vocal about the work that we put into it, say thank you for it. And I think we can do that and recognize, the people that help you get there, because none of us do it alone.
Absolutely. I think it goes back to like where we kicked off the conversation about the gold stars of knowing personally, like when you do something really good that nobody else knows about, and receiving the compliments or the acknowledgments from the external sources. I do the exact same thing. It's like, oh, the podcast is great, and I'll dim the light, be like, yeah, that's great, but I want to be the one. The problem with me and my issue is that we'll say craziness, because I'm here for crazy, is we're never just gonna like do CrossFit. We're going to go to the games. We're never just going to do lacrosse. We're going to do this. Like, and sometimes that's realistic in life, and a lot of times it's not. So that's things that I've had to continue to unpack. And I kind of like that that's always the end marker, and I can deal with if it doesn't get fully there. My thing is when someone says to me, good job, like on yesterday's workout, I think I got like 11:20, which is great because I have
amazing. Congrats.
Yeah. Thank you. And I mean, it's burpees, snatches were no problem. Like we're a meathead, no big deal. It's the burpees like you that I'm not going to put my, my big ass up and down 5,000 times is a lot. So it's my mind is like, yes, it's great, but I'm already comparing to the top athlete because that's where I put myself. So I think that's good. And I'm not having this conversation of like, thank you, but I hold myself to this standard. Like it's this whole thing of here that you don't see, or I'm always in this compared to the top standard. Instead of just saying, thank you, that was great, I'm over here. So it's not even really sometimes a lack of confidence or I'm dimming the light. It's that I expected more from myself. And that's the conversation I'm not having, if this makes sense. So I've had to learn to just say thank you. And also in that thank you, relax yourself. You are not training. You're not doing this. Like you're not close to the games. Like it can be just good enough for today. So it's dimming the light and also just letting go of this really intense expectation on all things.
So I so feel you on that. And I think sometimes we set ourselves up for mental failure, not actually what happened, but it's more mental failure because we connect ourselves to an expectation of ourselves that isn't accurate. Now, I am all about going big or going home. So I'm not saying like be too reasonable. I still think we should be unreasonable in a lot of things. But to your point, like you don't have to be going to the games to do a good job here. You don't have to, like, you can get to 1 million and the 5 million will come later. Our expectations it's of ourselves. It's our problem. It's nobody else. Nobody else is doing it to us. It's our own, it's our own falsehood of like, I have to be this big thing when maybe that big thing looks different.
Or it's going toward that energy is going towards something else. I love that I have that. And I would champion, especially my young girls, I coach forever, like have that big dream, have that goal. And if you fall short here and there, keep the goal. That's okay. You're gonna have failures. But I like that drive. I like that internal belief of like go to the greatness, run to it. And if you trip and fall and eat shit along the way, which you will, that's okay. But be able to have that balance in letting go of momentarily just embracing the success for right there and use that towards the step of the bigger goal. That might be in CrossFit, that might be in business, that might be in this conversation. Like just give the grace along the way so you can have the big dream, but be graceful along the way and just chill the fuck out.
I feel like I need that. I need you to just, I'm going to take that little recording and I'm going to make that my cell phone, my ring. So that every time someone calls me, it'll be like, chill the fuck out, Tamara.
Yeah. Well, we've read so many books. I have so many good quotes. I have so many things that like education and training and courses and retreats. Sometimes it's like, just fucking relax and like enough of all the putting it into shiny box and figuring it out and doing the right thing. Just chill, just kick it.
So I've been doing training and keynote speaking for a long time now. And the mistake I made when I was earlier on is I would jam pack every piece of value I could into the 2 hours that I was with this, or an hour, whatever it was, right? Like just like every moment was like, here's a nugget, here's a nugget, here's a nugget. And people loved it. They were great, but I didn't really get the transformative feedback until I just was like, I'm going to focus on 2 or 3 things.
Yep.
And I'm going to give the people in the room the space to think about it and the space to breathe. And the minute I did that, and by the way, as the person at the front of the room, whether it was a keynote, like with a kind of more traditional audience or a workshop, I was a little bit panicked because I'm like, oh my God, they're going to hate it. They're not doing anything. They're just writing. They're just talking. But every time the feedback from them was like, that was the breather I needed. I just like I think sometimes we try so hard to just push that we don't even give our brains a chance to catch up, to think about it, to decompress. And in fact, it's interesting because the research shows it takes our brains 5 to 7 minutes to complete one task, close it out, move on to the next. But we don't give ourselves 5 minutes. Instead, we just go. And then we carry all this like mental residue around that weighs us down. And then we're exhausted.
Yeah, I'm in. And if you flip the role and you think like I'm the person in the audience and I'm probably exhausted, this is why we watch Love is Blind with some other vitamin T trash.
Yeah,
and just decompress because it's so much. So I know if I'm sitting in the audience and I'm hit with 1,000 things that are awesome and they streamline my process and it's awesome, but like it's coming and I can't even keep up. And then I'm just like, oh man, if there's 2 or 3 things I'll write down, but like I love all this. I'll record it and watch it later, which I never do. And it's just too much. Like I agree with you. It's just about holding that space, letting someone or the audience feel seen, feel heard, and connected to, and like that's it. That's enough. Like that's it.
So I'm going to take that to a personal level. Do you find in your day-to-day life, like that little nugget where you just said, if people just need to feel connected, feel seen, feel heard, and when that happens, your relationships change?
Yeah. And yes, is the short answer. Yeah. And I've really, the podcast, again, it's funny how we sign up to do something for the end game of like helping people and bringing voice to the table. And here I am learning all the lessons, even if no one tunes in, like I've learned so much having these combos. And I just had a great podcast in person with, Laura Mahoney, your BFF, and we've known each other forever, so I knew it was going to be good. It's like us talking, like easy flow, background. And I would talk to my mom afterwards, and she's like, how'd it go? And I'm like, it's good. I'm like, the best I've really learned after doing, 206 conversations plus, like the biggest thing to me that makes me a good host or makes me good at what I do as far as podcasting is creating a space for them to feel at ease and comfortable to share. Like that's it. That's my whole job, is to hold that space. It's not about asking the right questions or this and that. If you can, in my opinion, hold the space for them to feel comfortable to share and feel seen and feel heard, like that's it. And I think that was such a lesson I needed to learn as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as a strong woman or whatever. Yeah. It's just, you don't have to do everything. Just hold the space and let them come through and let it be able to feel, like them feel seen, feel heard. That's it. I think that's the exact same thing, personal, professional, whatever relationship. It's that simple.
It's like the fundamental human need beyond everything else. So let me ask you this, because this is what my mom used to joke about me, and I bet you have the same thing. My mom used to laugh and say that when I'd come home, like I could be at the bus stop for 5 minutes and the person I was sitting next to would tell me their whole life story. And my fiance jokes around too. Like we'll go out and he said, no matter where we go, someone's like going to tell you something that they've probably never said out loud before in their lives. And I think it's, I used to get a little annoyed. I'd be like, oh my God, I just want some people, because I'm kind of an introvert at the end of the day. But the reality is like, I actually think it's a real gift and an honor that people are willing to share things with me, like they share things with you. But did you get that too growing up? Like, you could just be out at the mall and come home and you're like, I met so-and-so and I know his whole life story.
Yeah. Well, yes. People like friends will be like, okay, we've got about 20 minutes to go in here. So don't start talking and be in there for an hour. Like we've got to go, like wrap it up. Like, let's go. I mean, personal relationships, that's happened. Like you don't need to talk to the waiter right now. Literally we have 40 minutes. Like, so it's always happened. On the flip side, I'm just a curious human. So it's never about like a business agenda or anything like that. And that's why it's worked with podcasting, I'm sure, for both of us. But some of my greatest like business things have been like, oh, on a ski lift. And it's like, drinking tequila. And it's like, oh my God, I know that company. Me too. That's my cousin's uncle's friend. Like, no way. We played lacrosse at And like, A, it's a small world. But B, when you can build those personal connections just through like some conversation, I think that's when the best things happen and the right people come into your world that you then get to be friends with or get to work with or whatever. And then the journey's more fun. So yes, those things are really important, and it does take time and energy. So you got to have patient people around you.
Yeah, right. Well, my kids always do. Every time we go anywhere, they're like, really, can we just get going? Why are you still talking? I'm like, I can't help it. I have questions. And this person's talking and I have questions. Yeah. I was going to say, I lost my train of thought. I was going to say something about it. Now I can't remember.
Well, has that helped you like unintentionally for business podcasts and everything else? You get to know people and know them on a deeper level kind of fast.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my mom always joked that everybody thinks they're my best friend, and in some ways they are, because if they text me with stuff, I'm right back at them, right? And I think like you, I'm just deeply curious. So I what fascinates me in general in life is what makes people tick, why people do
Yeah,
what they do,
yeah,
why they believe what they believe, and with no judgment. I really, I think, we're living in a world they're trying to push us apart
yeah.
and make us say, like, well, if you're the blue versus red, right, you two shall never be friends. And if you're, believe in this versus that, you can never get along. And I know a lot of people who really subscribe to that, and I think they're really missing out. And I guess I'm more interested in the why behind it than I am really judging where they are today. And I think that because I get the why behind it, and I think maybe you're in the same place, I have more respect for where they are, even if I don't agree with them. So, or it's not my stance in life. It's not, who cares if I agree or disagree with them? It doesn't even matter. Who says I'm right? So it doesn't matter. But the why behind it to me is fascinating. Fascinating, right? Like what we learn about why people do what they do. Like you ask a question on your podcast that I love, which was something about what were you like as a child, or you asked me a question like that when you interviewed me, something like that.
Yeah.
And those are the questions that I think are like, people are amazing, and there's a reason they believe and who they are today, but we forget that. We just go, well, I don't agree with you, so I don't like you. But underneath it all, there's so much similarity.
100%. Yes. Yeah. Every guest I have, I say, tell me about yourself as a young person. Cause
Yeah.
that as a 0-year-old, you're not filtered. Like you are just who you
Yeah.
are, and you do the weirdest stuff, but like that's the intel on who you're going to be, whether you believe it or not, or you takes 30 years off track, which was certainly me. You kind of go back to that. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's right where it starts. And it's all these little idiosyncrasies that are so bizarre that
So bizarre.
you could never make up or write. It's just little stuff you do. And I'm so with you. I'm so
Yeah.
fascinated. I'm like, why do you do that? And like, and myself included, like, it's the weirdest shit, but it's so cool because it just is. Like, it just is what it is.
Well, I just think like when you dig into that stuff, you see it makes sense. You're like, oh, that totally, like I used to, intentionally, when I was in school, you had to write your name on the right hand side of the paper, and I would write it on the left, and I'd get in trouble every time. But I thought the rule was stupid and I didn't like it. So I was going to challenge it. And so, and I'm that person that if there's a line into a restaurant, but there's the other line that nobody's going into because we become sheeple when it comes to lines, like I'm that person that goes in the other line as a kid, right?
I love
And
it.
it kind of all makes sense to when you look at those behaviors as a child of mine, it makes sense today. But I think that's true for everybody.
Absolutely.
Like one of my okay, here's what we're gonna do one day. This is my dream. So if you're out, I'm putting this out to the universe for us, Kristen. Okay, and I'm putting you into my dream. So I hope you like it.
I'm here.
So I really want to do a documentary where we go around the country and all we do is ask people why they believe what they believe. It started with like why Biden versus Trump, because I think that's such a big divider in our country right now, like why this side versus that side. But all the people I've talked to, regardless of what side they're on, as I start to ask questions, I'm like, I get you. And I see why you believe what you believe. And it actually makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. And with no judgment. But I think I'd love your opinion. I'm kind of rambling now, but I want your opinion on this. I think judgment is really hard for us as humans. And that's what holds most of us back from building relationships.
100%. These are like our internal gatekeepers. I hope, I don't know if Jackie's still on, but she'll know me explaining turmeric and tequila was really hard because it's me. It's like, I want to, I love to work hard and do other things, and I love to play hard and have more fun. But reality is, it's this lighthearted. Oh, good, she's here. Hi, Jackie. Thanks for being like our pseudo co-host. It was really hard for me to explain it 4 years in because this is this lighthearted take on this shallow into the pool of like party and training. But really, I finally had the language, and it'll continue to evolve. Is that opposing things can harmoniously coexist. Republicans, Democrats, athletes and partiers, whatever, because this is all surface level shit. When you get down to the nitty gritty, I don't care who you're voting for. Tell me about your life, your day to day, what you came from, why, how we eat the same kind of pizza, or who whatever. Like all this surface level judgment stuff that separates us is the shallow end of the pool. It doesn't matter. And if we get past that these silly gatekeepers, all these commonalities are there. I mean, we bleed the same, we sleep the same, we do all the things the same. I mean, it's literally science. Our DNA is so similar any which way you break it down. It's just the belief systems in our narrative in the shallow end of the pool keeps us from connecting. And I completely agree with you. We're the only ones that miss out, because that person, if like something went down that might be a Republican doctor and I'm a Democrat that's in need on the plane, that Republican at that point might be able to be the one that comes and saves me. And we're never having this dumb conversation about politics. It's one human showing up for another. And we didn't even have the luxury of having a conversation to get to know each other. It's just one person being a human showing up for another human being, and it navigates around all this surface level shit. So you just never know who you're going to meet. And I agree. Just let some of these like surface level judgments go, because you never know what you're missing out on.
Yeah. And I think too that we are more than one issue that we feel a certain way about. And we're more than one person we vote for, or one behavior that we have, or one habit, or one moment in time, even. Like we're so much more dynamic than that. And I think the challenge we have is when we judge, if I say, well, Kristen, I don't like you because of this one belief of yours, I'm going to then start to assume that every belief of yours is out of alignment with my beliefs, when I don't even know. But I'm going to cluster everything that you believe into this camp versus this camp. So I say you and I go across the country and we get a van and we just go from diner to diner and just go from place to place and interview people about why they are who they are. Because to me, and here's the other, Jackie said she'll come too. Yes. So here's the thing I believe about it too is, I don't need to have a commonality with you to respect you. So if I have some understanding for why you believe what you believe. So I'm cool for the commonalities, but I'm also cool for the differences. I'm all good if you and I are not in the same place. Okay. Like differences are not a bad thing. I don't know where we got to this place where differences are bad. Don't you think?
100%. No, differences are when you can learn the most. And what's funny is why do you think family holidays and family Christmas and all this stuff is really hard for everybody? It's because you know each other so well, and you get to know each other on a deep level, and you have differences. If you start to have these real conversations with close people in your life, you'll be like, oh shit, we do believe differently. Oh, I don't think that's the case, or this and that, or people I see every day at the gym. I guarantee you we have different values, and I love and respect and look up to my community. I guarantee you we don't vote the same. I guarantee you we don't bring our families the same. So, and that's okay. Like, just again, chill the fuck out. It's okay that we have different things. Like, we are different people, and we can coexist and learn from each other and vote differently or live differently or whatever.
I 100% agree. So are we in for our documentary? It'd be so amazing. Would that be fun?
I'm in. We just need a branded Sprinter vehicle. I'm here.
Oh my God. Start on the West Coast and go like up and around and then down and back. And and let it take you where it takes you, like from person to person kind of thing. People are fascinating. And I think, I got a lot more joy in life when I stopped judging people and stopped expecting certain things from people. Kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. Judgment and expectations are the killer of joy in relationships. Totally. And if we just let go of those two things, so much more comes our way. And chill the fuck out, which is what I'm working on.
It really gets that simple, because again, the more academic, I mean, this is a whole hot take, but I think there's too much school. Like sometimes you just need to stop educating, always be learning and evolving, but stop reading everyone else's journey and how they tell you to do things, and just get back to yourself. Think about your young self. There's so many times I sit down and be like, my 18-year-old self did not give a shit. I walked onto a D1 team. I had no business being there athletically. I was a phenomenal hard worker, and that got me through and blah, blah, blah. But like, I didn't care. And so now at 43, I go back. I'm like, go back to 18 when you didn't care. You didn't know all these things. There was no social media. You were influenced by so much less because you just saw the goal and you did it. And you get back to what it is. So yes, on the tour, and yes to showing up as our 18-year-old selves.
So I feel like we can have maybe this is our next podcast, although a lot will happen in a month, but there's something really powerful in going back to being unreasonable. And in fact, I did this little exercise and I put some words on a sticky note in front of my desk of like the things that I want to be about. And I put unreasonable back on there because I think somehow, I don't know, you probably have a better way to articulate this than me. It's like that unreasonableness I don't think is a bad thing. In fact, I think it's really positive, gets chipped away over time. And maybe it's because, you're not supposed to do that. You're too much. Don't talk so much. Don't go after it. Like, don't be the tall tulip in the field. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But I think like what I learned is I was super unreasonable as a child, like really unreasonable. The world bended to me. And then over time, which is a good thing, really, over time, I let the world chip me away. and then I had to get back to that. So I don't know, I mean, you probably have more insight than I do on that, but I think, I don't know, I think it gets, unreasonableness gets chipped away.
Yeah. Oh, I think you can title it a few ways. But again, if that's your authentic young self, there's intel on that. And
Yeah.
that's going to be like the lighthouse or the guide ship, the North Star on
Yeah.
where you're going and how you're going to be impactful in this world. I talk about this story. My dad and my three brothers and I went golfing one time. I don't know where my mom was, but I'd never golfed before. And I might have told the story last time with you. I can't remember. But anyways, there's a women's tee and a men's tee. And so the men's are a little bit farther back. I never played golf, so I'm not good, number one. But all I knew is I was the only girl and I'm the oldest. So I do things, I'm the leader, whatever. And my dad's like, oh, you go up to the women's tee, it's closer. And I was like, right now, and I think about it, that visceral reaction of like, of, oh, you're telling me what I can do before I'm there. And this was no conversation about gender equality, no language around that. All I knew is you're telling me what I can do before, and they get to go to the hard one. And I go to this little JV situation. And I was furious as like a 12-year-old. And I'm terrible. And my dad, knowing me by now, he's like, it's going to be a whole thing. Go. Okay, great. Go to the men's tee. There's 50 people waiting. So I go to the men's tee. It doesn't even get to the women's tee of hitting. I don't even know what I'm doing. But the point was, I was so pissed off on being told what to do, or I'm this before I even show up. The expectations there. And fast forward 40 years, that's the whole journey. Like all in that moment define the entire journey. So being unreasonable, being whatever, just being your authentic self. Yeah, you got to be there. And guess what? You're not going to speak to everyone. Like find your people that you can hit. And if that's unreasonable and you seek to other unreasonable people, then so be it. Like let that, everything else trying to fit into the box of feeding and helping and, doing all these things, let it go. Just be that person that at 12 didn't listen or wanted to write their name in a certain spot. That's what it's supposed to be.
So that story so resonates with me because anytime someone's like, well, Tamara, you're a girl or you haven't done this or you don't get to go to that thing or do that thing. I'm like, the F I can't. Like, are you kidding me? Like you can't tell me, even if I'm not really ready, doesn't matter. The fact that you've created a boundary or a kind of like a limit for me really makes me angry. Like I have a hard time then not trying to prove you wrong. Like that, like it really sticks to me to hear those kind of stories. But I will tell you, I gotta give a shout out to my dad for a minute because when I was young, so we moved to the US when I was 5. And my dad grew up in a kibbutz where everybody is equal. Girls, boys, you all do the work, right? You all go to the military. You all like all of that always exists there, right? It's a very equal society in a lot of ways. And so when we moved here, like I never wore dresses. It never occurred to my dad that I couldn't do whatever any of the boys were doing. So it never occurred to me. So I lived my whole life thinking, well, obviously I can do what anybody else can do. Because as a child, I wasn't allowed to wear dresses because I was going to play on the playing field with all the boys. And I remember I love my high heels and my dresses now. So I've worked my way into some girly things. But the fact that like my dad set it up as everybody's equal from the beginning, regardless of what the world was trying to tell me, that's what I believe.
I love it. And it's huge. And those beginning, like what your parents, your first influencers are saying really like begins like the initial narrative of who you are, your identity. So like the fact that those doors were open, that's massive. And a lot of people don't have that. So you got to unpack it. Shout out to your dad. That's huge.
But actually,
yeah, I don't know that my parents were as open-minded just culturally, but I think they just didn't want to deal with my shit. So they were like, just let her go because it's just, we're tired. We've got 3 other ones running around. So just let her be. And I was like, cool, I'm not doing it. So
that's my dad too. And I'm like, we'll go to a restaurant and they won't set up the table. Like we were a big group the other day and it's actually at family day at CU Boulder for my son. And my dad didn't like the way the table was set up. And I was like, yeah, this isn't working. Both my dad and I were like charged over and the rest of the people with us were like, just let it be. It's fine. My dad and I were like, no, we want it our way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my fiance was like, turned to one of our friends was like, just let them go. Just they need to do this. I was like, you're right. We do.
And there's going to be people in the room that really appreciated that. And they're like, oh God, thank God someone did it. And other ones being like, God, they're doing the most. They don't need it. And it's you know what, whatever, just do you and please half the people and let them be upset versus pleasing no one. So.
And here's the other thing. You said something really important earlier, because it's important to me. And I think probably important to people listening, which is like, you can't please everybody. And I've come to realize 2 things. One is you can't. And I was more of a people pleaser than I ever thought because I kind of hid behind my directness and my bluntness. But really at the end of the day, like I'm a little bit of a people pleaser. And so I've worked on that. And I've realized that guess what? Nobody else is thinking about you. So like I'm over here worried what so and so is thinking about me, but you know what? They're worried about themselves.
Yep.
So let it go.
Let
And
it go.
it's really I think it creates a lot of release when you realize nobody's thinking about you anyway.
Right. 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 It's weird to exist in spaces. I don't know if you watch this podcast, but we've talked about like downloads and how much this is happening. And it's a part of the game or statistics with social media, like views and likes and whatever. And Jackie and I talked about this and the gym, like regardless of what you're putting your score down, like you either did the work or didn't. If you messed up the reps or you cheated reps or whatever, it does not change the work. But we
Yeah.
have these measurables that we've got to live with, and it's really hard. And I had this conversation the other day around is it about the numbers so then you get sponsors and go to the next level and get more exposure? Or is it about really dialing into your audience, even though the numbers are less? So if I have more of a salacious show and we're telling, and I don't want to throw shade to other shows, but it's like famous people were talking about, the first time we lost our virginity and did it. We're going to get lots of views. You're going to get Love is Blind type stuff where it's this and this. Where on the flip side, our shows are a little bit more intentional and it's not a better or worse, it's just different. It's going to be a smaller audience. So it's like, do you go for the big views and you please everybody, or do you go for what your purpose is and you please some people and not get caught up in these measurables? Because the salacious one's going to have more downloads. It's going to look more successful. It's going to go get the gold stars, blah, blah, blah. But do I really want to talk about, these salacious sex stories and naked people on Instagram? Like, it's really not my lane. So it's about letting go of that measurable, being really clear and secure on doing you, being comfortable in your lane and knowing that this is enough, even though it's not as many downloads or whatever the gold star measurable is.
Well, you said something earlier too about oh God, what did you say? You said something about serving the right people or like serving the people that are meant to. I think the podcasting is kind of funny because we look at our numbers, right? And we want them to be big and we want the sponsors, blah, 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 right? Like all the things that go along with podcasting. The thing that's funny about it though, I think is if you try to do the stuff that other people do, it's not who you are. So if you and I tried to do like a whole podcast on, we're just gonna keep picking on Love is Blind because I'm in the middle of watching it. It's so big right now and I can't help myself. But I just love it so much because that's my mental break.
Totally.
But that wouldn't really. So yeah, maybe we could get our views to shoot up, but it wouldn't be in alignment with who we are on the inside. And so I think it really hurts us in the long run to do that. And here's the other thing too I found is, and I'm going to go back to TikTok when I first got on, especially during 2020, is there were a lot of, especially women on there in like very small outfits, right? And they were getting millions of views.
Yep.
But there was one woman named her handle was Call Me Chris. And I don't know if it still is or she changed it. And she's really adorable, really quite beautiful when she dresses up. But her comedy skits were the opposite of all these chicks in small outfits. And she was fun, like really funny. And now when I look at who's successful and who's still living the dream, it's her. Yeah. And so maybe she didn't get this big ramp up in the beginning, but she found a niche and her numbers grew. She's in the millions now. Yeah. Her numbers grew. And I've seen that time and time again with people who are authentically themselves. That's what you were saying earlier about authentically yourself. So like on one hand, let go of the numbers, but also on the other hand, do you the best way you can do you, and those numbers will follow at some point. I don't know, maybe that's a cop out because I feel like I'm so tired of looking at the numbers, but I don't know. Like, who do you follow on those things? Do you follow people who like do what everybody else does, or do you follow the ones that have a little niche that you're like, I love what they do?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't follow that much. And that's not good because you got to be a student of the game. So this isn't even, don't take my own advice, but I would say you follow. I try and follow people I actually care about and then engage with it. But I'm on social media so much because of work, business sharing, then you share the podcast. I try and get off. So I'm not really that impacted by influencers online. I'm more impacted by the people around me because I try and disconnect. That being said, I follow Madonna and see what her things are. My, Jackie, she's saying integrity is the most important thing. I follow people that are living how I want to live. And I take into account what they're doing, but most of my influence is IRL, in real life, the people around me. So, Yes, I think it's, you got to keep showing up who you are, and that the numbers, the business, the money, the downloads will come, and staying true to it. I think the takeaway is being able to stay in it in the beginning and staying true to yourself and not getting blinded by the light wherever you're consuming it of how this worked for other people, because it might be a short-term game. They might be buying views. Who knows what the story is? Or they might just be naked and good looking and great. I don't know what you're selling, but follow your heart. Just knowing that's not you and staying in it until it does get to your space and you sharing your integrity, then they will come. So I don't know if I answered your question. I do follow mostly, but I try and keep it in real life, just because I'm on social media so much. I feel like I'm not, like, I don't really follow a lot of, even I don't know, like big, like I don't follow any Kardashians. I don't follow any
Me either. Well, they're not my jam. So good for other people. They're like Kardashian, all that kind of stuff's not my thing. Good for that. Like, I don't like other people like it. I think the point therein, though, is that, do it your way and you'll find the audience, and then listen to your audience and what they want and respond to that. But, I couldn't be salacious if I wanted to, because it's not me. It'll never be me. So
I think some of the workout videos I post are a little extra. Jackie's used to the videographer, not on purpose, just because it is what it is and we wear tight pants, but it's never the intention of like, look at a certain thing. It's more about like, here's me doing the work or whatever. So I don't know. I do intentionally follow podcasters. Like, I like what Mel Robbins has to say. I try and follow people that I want to be like. So I think that's important. And they've taken very different paths and they're wildly successful. So I think it's good. But I think for me, it kind of goes back to that not listening and just be a student and be lean in, but just really trying to do what feels right and stay true to me. It might take 10 years to get to that next level, but.
Well, I'd say, I think too, it's a little bit of a journey. In every transformation I've had in my life, in some way, work, life, whatever it is, I've never woken up one day and been like, I'm going to make this change. And then it all went flawlessly. It's like, I have to wake up every day and remind myself, I'm making this change. I'm making this change. I'm making this change. And some days go better than others. So I think there's a little bit of a myth out there that, like, we're going to step into ourselves and we're going to own our power and we're going to do all that. And it's all just, once I decide that, everything flows. But, the story I was telling you in the beginning about switching up this week, I had to be very intentional every day about making that happen and sticking to my plan. So I don't think that we, step into the light and all of a sudden it's easy. I think we have to work hard to stay there.
100%. Well, the only constant is change. So whether you think you're doing it or not, it's changing anyways. Like, it's already, you're not in control of all this stuff. Like, it's the evolution's happening no matter what. A consciousness and awareness is important, and intentionality about things you can control and specifically change it. It's just changing no matter what. Like, it's happening, time's moving, things are rotating. And I do believe if you're showing up and doing the best you can, change is positive. It's working for you. Universe is showing up for you. The things around you, God is providing for you, whatever your language is. And just show up, like, just keep doing your stuff and let it go. Serve the people you can, have your integrity, and like, that's enough.
Oh my gosh, Kristen, because we probably have to get off at some point. Although we could just, we should just go live all Saturday. I'd be so here for that. As long as I had coffee handy so I can keep up, I'd be so here for that. But it kind of goes to loop it back to what we were talking about at the beginning of, like, don't decide to do the workout after you know what the workout is.
Right.
Just decide to show up and do your best in whatever it is that happens that day, but don't try to filter it out before you even know what you're getting into. So I feel like that's a little bit of like exactly what we were talking about in the beginning.
The practice is the reward, 100%. And just keep showing up and let it go. I had some other point that I was going to say and it just flew out of my mind, but
I feel like every time we talk, there's 10 points coming out at once. So sometimes I'm like, oh, I remember that one. Then I lose it.
Oh no, I was going to say podcasting is our new CrossFit. Like I'll look at my trackers after this and see like where my heart rate was, because I get so amped up and like whatever. So this is like the new CrossFit.
It's totally. And I don't know about you, but I'm sure it's true for you. I get so much joy hearing other people's stories and connecting and in a way that I never thought I don't know that I never thought I would, but I didn't know that was something that I would be doing on a regular basis.
Oh, I could totally see that for you. I knew that from coaching, seeing like my young humans, which I miss so much, because it was always great for me to have personal or professional or whatever success, but seeing like my kiddos do something awesome and I could see the light flick on when like I could feel them and see them feel their internal fire, like them really proud of themselves. Like nothing like was like more important to me than that. And like I'd see how that carries over through like podcasting. It's like, man, when you can see someone like feel the fire within themselves or that fire that they're chasing, and like they're gonna go out into the world and like be our real influencers and be the ones that make a difference and make change. There's nothing better than that. And I think we get that a little bit on podcasting where it's like, damn, I really know that conversation mattered. If not even to them, to me, like this all really does matter outside of accolades and downloads or like this shit in between matters. And I know that. I think that's our fire.
Well, I think that's why you and I, once we started really talking, connect so well, is because you and I both love giving other people the spotlight and giving them a chance to shine. Because it really isn't, it feels, I just did a TikTok about this last night. It feels really good to be helpful, not people pleaser. They're two different things. But I love seeing other people rise up into their potential. And if you can just give them a platform to do that and see the light bulb, like you just said, go off in them, it's so rewarding.
It's everything. And in turn, we get that. Like if we feel helpful, it's kind of about us too, where it's like, I'm doing for you, but it's showing up for me as well. So it's like this very mutually beneficial thing that's really, really awesome.
Oh my God, I love it so much. Okay, we should probably let people get on with their day.
Go, it's Dog Saturday. Go take your animals for a walk.
Yeah, I need to do that next. Although it's super windy outside. So I'm in New Mexico. I'm at the ranch today. And the wind out here when it gets windy is like blow your head off wind. It's not just like it's a gentle breeze outside. It's just like tumbleweeds everywhere.
No, wind is the most annoying weather of all the weathers.
So do you feel this way? I would rather run in the rain and in the snow or sun, but really rain and snow, I'm perfectly okay with. But wind, I'm like, nope.
You can't do anything. It blows shit all over. Like the dogs are, it's such an intense energy. I don't like my hair. As long as I have a hat in the rain, I don't care if it's done. That's annoying. But otherwise, wind it's hard to navigate around. Like you really can't do anything.
One time we were out biking on the road right outside the ranch. And so it's canyon. So it's up and down, right? Which is great for training. But I was going on what should have been an easy downhill, and Jeff was going on the uphill part of it. So we're crossing each other this way, but the wind was so intense that he was going faster on the uphill than I was going on the downhill, and I was cranking, and he was flying past me because he had the wind at his back. It is so powerful, which is a whole nother lesson about having the wind at your back, right?
Right, totally. Like, I wish for change, but be ready if the force comes, man. You better be ready.
As I said the other day, I was like, you gotta be ready for the headwinds and the tailwinds because they're both coming.
For real.
You don't really get to always choose.
Right. And that's why you can't choose the workout. Like just show up because like, again, that's coming. That's exactly what it is right there. That sums it all up. Like you don't know what's coming. So just show up and be ready. Pack a helmet.
All right. This has been awesome. How about you and I stay on for a minute after I end just so we can like wrap it up. But this is okay. Yay. Yes.
Thank you for tuning in, Jackie. We love you all the days.
I know Jackie's the best.
Yeah.
The best. Okay.